Hey everyone, Ronan here. Today I wanted to make a different kind of video. As you know, I like making build videos for Baldur's Gate 3, and I actually had an email request stating to basically show how I go about my process when it comes to making builds. That way they could go about it as well. And instead of making a long email explaining it, I figured why not make a video for it. So hopefully you will find this video useful. When I go to make builds, I think of a few different things. First off, I have some things I do utilize. I am using the wiki, the community wiki for Baldur's Gate 3. The information on here is constantly being updated, and it has a lot of great info for when it comes to weapons, armor, and more. So that way, if you want to make a build around a specific item, which some of my future builds are going to showcase, this is a great resource. But there's also a website I found off of Reddit that actually goes into kind of like building a character that I wanted to talk about. And I will have, of course, links in the description below for both of these websites. But this one here is really fantastic. So when it comes to specifically ability scores, this right here is like my go-to for planning a character. One thing I know, for example, say I am going for a dexterity character. Well, there's an item, you can click this right here to the right and it will bring up a screen, and you can put, like, if I'm going to use Auntie Ethel's hair, which I do for a lot of my builds because it's really useful, I could click this and say, well, I want it in dexterity. So now when you look at it, it automatically adds a +1 to the dexterity here. So now when I go to actually plan my character out, I can plan it and see the stats that I want, which really helps out, especially for people that don't want to respec a lot when it comes to their stats. You can pre-plan it in advance. So with that in mind, I'm going to showcase how to make a build on your own, whether you're starting out like really early in the game, whether you have plans for late game, whatever it may be. This is the process I use. So let's go ahead and start with the type of race you want to be. So on the wiki, you can easily pick the race. It gives you all the options. You can scroll down and it pretty much tells you everything that you get with the race right away, which is really useful. So if you need that information and don't want to read it in game, it's there in the wiki for you to use. Because I know a lot of the game, I've been playing it. I mean, I got over 150 hours in the game. I don't really need it for race all that much. But when it comes to different classes and things like that, it's definitely something that I would recommend you check out. So first, we're going to take a look at the type of character you want to be. Do you want to be dexterity based, strength based? Like, what do you want to do? And for this build here, we're going to showcase something that I am going to showcase in a future video later on. And that's going to be a dex based two-handed weapon using character. So in order to do that, you need to find weapons that have the finesse property that can be used with two hands. So come down here and you think about, most of them probably would be versatile if you had to think about it, but there are some items that aren't. So take a look at halberds. If you scroll down, you'll actually see there are some great halberds here that you can use. Halberd of Vigilance. Oh, wow. Like extra reach, dippable, has the extra 1d force damage, but it says it's a strength modifier. It doesn't have the finesse property. That kind of sucks because I was hoping to really use it. But for example, it tells you exactly where to find it. It's sold by this NPC in Moonrise Towers in the main floor, which is why I really like this wiki. It has a lot of great information to use. So I could go through every halberd to see if there is one that has the finesse property. Unfortunately, there isn't. So what about glaives, for example? So we scroll down. I already know from my research there is one, and that's the Dancing Breeze Glaive. So if you read here, it says it's finesse. So this means it's going to use your strength or dexterity modifier. Well, if you are a rogue, you get sneak attack damage if using a finesse weapon, meaning you can use this glaive later on in Act 3, two-handed, and gain sneak attack damage bonuses as well. So you could be a two-handed sneak attack rogue type character, which I think is a really cool concept. And you scroll down, it tells you exactly where to get it. The vendor, I have no idea how to say this guy's name, but he sells it in Rivington, which is pretty cool. And if we click on his name, you can actually see he sells some other cool things, specifically these stalker gloves. So take a look at those. this is great. Your sneak attacks deal additional 1d4 force damage and gain +1 to initiative rolls. So already you can see just from doing research, wow, if I want to be a two-handed sneak attack character, these gloves might be something I would want to pick out. But that's in Act 3 in Rivington, so what about going through Act 1 and 2? Well, that's when you can do more research. To save time, I'm just going to showcase a couple weapons you could use. For example, long swords. You can use them with one hand if you wanted, like sword and shield, or you could use them with two hands and still get the 1d10 modifier, and normally they're strength based here. I know just from my research and playing the game though, there are some specific swords that are versatile that you can use. One of them is this one right here. This sword that you get super early in Act 1 in the Underdark is really great because it is considered finesse. It has some amazing abilities on here as well. This is a sword you can get super early in Act 1. I'm talking about like as soon as you hit level 3, you can pretty much get this. So this is another weapon I could think about when I go to make my builds. All right, well, so for early game, this is a weapon I could use that will have the finesse property to allow me to still be that two-handed type kind of rogue sneaky character while getting my sneak attack damage at the same time, which is really cool. And it gives you the option, because it's versatile, to use a sword and shield if needed. So with that in mind, what about if I want armor and stuff like that? Well, before we go into specific armor pieces, I do want to look at the build itself and what kind of stats am I doing here. Am I going to save anti-Ethel? Yes, I am, because I do want that +1 to my dexterity, because that means as soon as you hit level 4, you can max out your dexterity, getting it to 20 dexterity right away. So with that in mind, how would you go about building your character? Well, we know we're going to be using finesse weapons, so we definitely want to have max dexterity as soon as possible. So I'll start choosing my properties. So I want the +2 in character creation to be to dexterity. The +1 I'm not going to choose yet. I'm going to bump this up to 17. But wait, I have the hair, so you can actually bump it up to 18 because it includes the hair since I chose it earlier from Auntie Ethel's hair. So now I can start popping in some other attribute points. We know at level 4 we are definitely going to be putting points into ability improvement in order to gain the max dexterity. So another thing that's going to be useful, constitution for sure. So if we take a look, we still have some more points to mess around with. With this character, you have to think about, do you want him to have charisma based on kind of like ability checks and things like that? Intimidation, deception. If so, you may want to put charisma in. If you're going for pure combat, I'm not going to worry about charisma. This character, for example, I'm not worrying about charisma at all. So I'm going to bump up my constitution to 15, and I'm going to use my extra little +1 in order to get it up to 16. So I have some good HP right away, right off the jump, as soon as you create your character. So now I have a couple more points. You see how it says 26 out of 27? So I can only put one more. So I could like bump wisdom up, but that doesn't do anything for me because it's an odd number. You want it to be even to get the ability modifier increase. So thinking about my character, because I don't care about charisma in this character and he's not going to be the face of my party, I'm going to lower my points in charisma in order to bump my wisdom up more so I have a better wisdom ability modifier. I could dump it down again because you already get the -1 for being at 9. You might as well put it at 8 to get some more points to mess around with. So now taking a look, I could increase something one more time, put it up to 13, but that doesn't really do anything for me. I could try to get my intelligence up higher, which could be useful, but if I do that, then it's an odd number, so it doesn't really do anything for me either. So in order to get another ability score improvement to be an even number here, I'm going to have to take away from something else. I could take away from strength if I wanted, but I'm not a big fan of doing that because I don't like having super short jump distances. So I'm actually going to take away from intelligence if I really wanted to. And then I could bump it up to 14. So I have a wisdom modifier of 14. And you don't necessarily need it in wisdom. This was just an example showcasing how you can go about planning your characters in advance. So we know our starting weapon. We're definitely going to get this longsword as soon as possible, which is really great because it's a great longsword. We know when we go to Act 3, we're definitely going to want to get that glaive right away. And the good thing about this longsword is it's so good, I can use this throughout Act 1 and 2 and still do some really solid damage. So with that in mind, now we got to think about our character and how I'm going to level. What am I going to start out with? What am I not going to start out with? And so on. So take a look at the classes. We know we definitely want sneak attack damage for sure. So if you take a look at the rogue, you have your different levels here. It tells you the sneak attack damage, like what levels they get it and things like that. You could click the different subclasses. I'm a big fan of thief because I really like the extra bonus action. I think everyone knows about that, but if you needed more detail about the other subclasses, you can click and get the information you need. For myself personally, right here though, I'm not going to start out as thief because if you take a scroll down, you can see the equipment proficiencies they gain: simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords, and light armor. Like that's really great because then I could use the long sword right away. But if you take a look at their armor, they can only use light armor. Well, what if I wanted medium armor to start out with? Well, then if you wanted medium armor to start out with, you wouldn't want to start out as a rogue. Depending on your race, for example, Githyanki, they do get medium armor proficiency, so you could do that, but I don't want to be Githyanki. This character is probably going to be a wood elf because I want the increased movement speed, or even an orc because I like the half orc crit racial. It's really powerful, so I'm not going to start out as rogue. That's going to be something I'm going to multi-class into later on. But thinking about the build, I know I want at least 3 points into rogue right away. So I'm actually going to start out probably as a fighter. So if we take a look at the fighter, we know you get your second wind, and we can choose a fighting style right away as soon as you create your character, which is really nice. And if you wanted more information on that, you can easily click it and see the different options you have to choose from. We know at level 2 you get your action surge, at level 3 you get to pick a subclass, and then at level 4 we get a first feat. So planning out this character, we know we want to get our first feat as soon as possible because we want to get the dexterity maxed out right away. Well, at level 5 you get your extra attack. So you might as well get your character to level 5 as soon as possible. Well, fighters also get a second feat at level 6. So with that in mind, more than likely for this character, I'm going to want to get this character to a level 6 fighter ASAP because that means as soon as I hit level 6, I will have max dexterity and I'm going to have another feat. So if you don't know what feats you want, go ahead and click it. More than likely you know where I'm going at with this build, and it's going to be great weapon master. This thing is just so incredibly good, definitely worth using. And the other reason why we chose fighter though is A, they can pretty much use any martial weapon, all that good stuff. So definitely is a great way to plan out your builds. And because we're going dex based, we know I could use ranged weapons like short bows, hand crossbows, and long bows, and actually have good damage with it as well since it will scale with your dexterity. So we know with this character, okay, first 6 levels planned out, bam. We know we also want to get the levels in the rogue right away as well, or when we can, I guess you could say. So thinking about it, first 6 levels, yes, I want to go fighter. Well, then we think about the rogue. So now we have 3 levels in rogue we can go with, which puts us at level 9. And that gives us 3 options or what we could do with the final 3 levels, level 10, 11, and 12. Well, if we take a look at some of the other classes, you have Barbarian, which is nice because Barbarians at level 1, you get Rage. We're not going to worry about unarmed defense because that won't apply to us since we are going to be using medium armor. But Rage would be nice because then we get resistance and we get additional damage as well. You get Reckless Attack at level 2, which is nice because when you attack, you'll have advantage. But enemies will also have advantage against us. Well, assuming you go the Thief route and you get the second bonus action, you'll know you'll have 2 bonus actions, so you can easily Rage at the start of combat and then start attacking with Reckless Attack as well, which would be really nice. And because we are going to be using Great Weapon Master, we definitely want to be able to get those crits and kills. So possibly putting 2 points into Barbarian is probably going to be a good idea for this build. So with that in mind, so now you think about, okay, we have 6 levels in Fighter, and we have our 2 feats. We have the 3 levels in Rogue, so we're level 9. We want to put 2 points into Barbarian, so now we're level 11. So now we have an option. What do we do for the final level? We could put it into a 3rd level of Barbarian and get to choose a subclass, and you could take a look at what you get at that subclass for each one if you really wanted to. Which is why I love this wiki. It breaks down everything real easy for you to understand. You can take a look at it. Like for me, I don't think Berserker is not going to be that big of a deal for me. I don't like Frenzied Strike, how it gives you the negative hit. So maybe Berserker isn't what I want. Maybe I want Wild Heart, so then I can see what all the different things are. Eagle Heart might be a good option. I mean, you have 2 bonus actions, so you'll be able to dash and rage all within the same turn if you really wanted to. But maybe you don't want that. You know, maybe you want another feat. So then you could take a look at Rogue, and you can see at level 3, because we'll have 2d6 sneak attack damage, at level 4 you'll get a feat, which could definitely be useful because then you take a look at all the extra feats you have. There is a bunch you could choose. I mean, there is a ton. If you want more initiative, alert's really nice. Athlete, because we already have our dexterity up to max, you would have to put it in strength because you can't increase the dexterity past 20, at least from this feat. So, I mean, but it's still not a bad feat to have. Charger is also another really good feat. There's a bunch you could do. Crossbow expert may be good if you plan to use dual crossbows with this build as well, since you will have 2 bonus actions. This would be nice since you would be in melee combat pretty often. I guess you can see what I'm going with here. So do you want the extra feat or not? Or do you just want to go back to Fighter and then pick level 7 Fighter? So level 7 Fighter, you get a subclass feature. So what class are we going? Are we going Champion to where you get the extra crit? And then at level 7, this is nice because you get your jump distance increased by 10 feet. We have low strength, so our jump distance isn't that great. So this would actually be pretty useful to us to get it up another 10 feet. You also gain additional proficiencies as well, so that's pretty useful. If we happen to be Battle Master at level 7, what do we get? You get more additional dice and everything. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to build making. And this is the process I go about. So now that we have, you know, our weapons chosen, we have sort of the build that we want to go for the most part. We know at least for a majority of the levels of what we're going to do. You can take a look at armor because armor is going to be super, super useful in this game. So we know if we start out as a fighter, you get medium armor proficiency. So let's take a look at some of the armors that you have. So I'm just going to click the medium armor to jump down to it. And you can scroll down and it will give you a list of all the medium armors that you can pretty much find really early. So keep scrolling until you find something that you like. Wow, Dark Justicar's half plate seems pretty decent. Let me click on that and see how to get it. Wow, advantage on stealth checks, which is pretty cool. And it says right here where to find it, and it even gives you coordinates as well to use in game, which is really nice. But maybe you want something before that, like maybe you want medium armor in Act 1 or even light armor, since you do have the option to wear light armor if you really wanted to. You can just scroll down and find where to pick something. For this example, we're going to go with the Spider Silk armor, which I'm sure everyone knows how to get. If you kill Minthara, you get it from her in the Shattered Sanctum, but in case you didn't know, it tells you where to find it. There's even screenshots for most armor in game as well, showing you what it looks like. So, alright, so maybe we want that armor right away. Bam, we're going to go with the Spider Silk armor. Maybe you start out as Rogue first, because Rogues are able to use longswords. Bam. So, really, it's going to be up to you how you want to go to build your character, but I just find this process for me personally very useful when I go to build my characters, and this is how I go about doing it. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Some future builds are going to be coming. I'm really excited for some of the endgame stuff. There is some incredible combinations I found endgame that just makes some crazy damage. So I hope you look forward to that in the future. And yeah, bye bye.